The interrogation of suspects is critical to any criminal investigation. A suspect might lie or tell the truth. They may be innocent or guilty. Interrogation is a high-stakes game. Too much pressure, and an innocent person might confess to a crime they didn't commit. But if the truth isn't discovered, a murderer could go free. So how does an interrogator get to the truth? New technology can scan our bodies and may reveal the telltale signs of deception. Research tells us what body language and speech patterns can indicate lying. Using actual interrogation footage, we will see how two detectives use the science of interrogation to solve murder cases.
I killed that little girl that night.
When a crime is committed, the police bring suspects in for questioning. A suspect is only interrogated if the police believe they're involved. If the suspect has committed a serious crime, like murder, they're probably not going to answer questions truthfully.
Do they pay you enough?
The challenge for the interrogator is to know when they're being lied to. But this is no easy task. Maureen O'Sullivan is the professor of psychology at the University of San Francisco. She's carried out extensive research into people's ability to detect lies.
There was a recent study of lie detection, and average accuracy is about 54%, where chance is 50%. So most people are not good at telling when others are lying.
The study included law enforcement officers, but many of them are no better at detecting lies than the rest of us. Stan Walters is an expert on interrogation. He's published books on how to detect deception and runs courses for law enforcement officers on how to improve their interrogation skills.
See, you're acting. What happened?
Not all law enforcement officers receive this additional training.
You also got to remember you're dealing with a psychopath. McNair's good.
Walter's years of experience interrogating suspects in criminal cases have convinced him that we can become better lie detectors.
It is possible to become a better lie detector, to do a better job at spotting people who are trying to deceive you.
Stress will have an unseen emotional change that will trigger a change in behavior.
He believes the key to spotting lies is understanding how stressful lying is.
Lying puts a great deal of stress on the person who proposes to lie. A lot of emotional stress, cognitive stress, that's betrayed in the verbal and nonverbal behavior.
The stress of lying can change a person's normal body language. Walters calls these changes deception cues.
The cues that appear to be those that have the highest link with deception are those movements around the face that are called negation, covering the eyes, nose, mouth, ears, or too long shaking your head, protesting too much, or aversion of the body turning and moving away from the interviewer.
The stress of lying can also affect a person's speech.
You think I don't know that I would be on camera if I went there?
Those verbal cues that are signs of deception include such things as something called cognitive dissonance, where there's extreme stress in the mind and the message becomes lost in the transmission.
Yeah, he was with a few people.
The other cues are those in a large category called denial. Convenient memory lapses, overselling the statement, trust me, believe me, honestly, qualifying statements, indirect answers.
Look, I don't know. I go there every night after work.
These are cues that the subject's attempting to mislead the interrogator.
So he was working full
These
time.
changes in body language and speech are not the only deception cues to look out for. One of the greatest challenges facing the liar is concealing their true emotions.
Darwin believed, and we believe also, that there are a few basic emotions that are hardwired, and that if you are emotionally aroused, this whole package just fires. And most people are not fast enough or good enough to track it. And you're going to get micro expressions where the person is attempting to control their emotion, but they're not able to. So it flashes on the face in a 15th of a second or a 30th of a second.
During the O.J. Simpson trial, one witness exhibits a micro-expression.
We're going to watch a video clip of Cato Kalin. He was a house guest of O.J. Simpson. Cato Kalin is being questioned about whether or not he has a book contract.
That you have a book proposal out.
As Marcia Clark talks with him about the book deal, he denies it,
You don't have a book proposal?
but he is having to control himself. You can see the clenching of his jaws. He denies it again. But as she gives more and more details about the book deal, he realizes that the cat's out of the bag.
You don't have any book proposals out?
No. Don't want to do a book.
What's of interest is very early on in the interview, a very flick on his nose
Yes.
of anger, disgust.
Yes.
As you look at his facial expression, when it is slowed down, you can see that he's showing an extremely strong expression of anger or disgust. That was just a flick in real time, unless you've been trained to recognize microexpressions.
Yes. Yes.
Later in the trial, evidence was presented of a conversation between Kalin and a publisher about a book contract.
How long have you known John?
Spotting deception cues in a suspect's body language, speech, and emotions helps an interrogator get to the truth. Stan Walters also teaches that an interrogation should be carried out in 3 well-planned phases.
And the objective is to try to get as much information as possible, but at the same time making sure that the content is accurate.
Phase 1 establishes a rapport with the suspect.
Did you play baseball? I played in the semi-pro league when I was 17.
The second phase draws out their story.
Lost her balance and fell back and hit right here on the coffee table.
In phase 3, their story is challenged.
That I have some concerns about the story that you told me.
Using actual interrogation footage, we'll see how these interrogation techniques were used to solve 2 murder cases. In each of these cases, the interrogation of a suspect was critical for solving the case. There was also no forensic evidence linking the suspects to the murders. The interrogations were recorded and shown at the trial of the suspects. Case 1 began on the 1st of September, 2003. Nicole Frederick was caring for her 2-year-old stepdaughter, Anne-Marie Shawley, at their home in Detroit, Michigan. In the morning, Nicole Frederick could not wake Anne-Marie up. She was rushed to a hospital emergency room with a severe head injury. The hospital suspected child abuse and contacted the police. Lieutenant Victor Loria was assigned to the case.
There were people that were obviously very, very upset because of the condition that Anne-Marie was in. But I noticed right away that Nicole Frederick did not appear to be displaying any emotion concerning the condition of the child.
Frederick's lack of emotion singles her out for Lieutenant Loria. He believes she may know what happened to Anne-Marie and plans to interrogate her. In the second case, 40-year-old Carmen Ross lived with her 4-year-old daughter Kiara in Lawrence, Kansas. Carmen was planning to move to California to get married and start a new life. Her ex-husband, Thomas Murray, a 48-year-old English professor at Kansas State University, opposed the plan. Murray lived in Manhattan, Kansas, about an hour-and-a-half's drive from Lawrence. On Friday, the 14th of November, 2003, Carmen was found beaten and stabbed to death in her home. Detective Doug Woods of Douglas County Police Department was assigned to the case.
I observed Miss Ross laying on the floor deceased. The living room was in quite a bit of disarray. Furniture had been turned over. There was a lot of blood on the carpeting, on the ceiling, on the walls.
Detective Woods' first task was to inform Carmen's ex-husband, Thomas Murray, of her death.
When they knocked on the door, I told him that I needed to speak to him about an issue, but I told him that his wife had died. Well, his first response was, "Do we have to do it right now?" He didn't show any reaction or any emotion to it. Did want to know what happened, and that's the oddest reaction I've ever gotten.
When Detective Woods first spoke to Thomas Murray, he was not a suspect. But Murray's unusual emotional response made Detective Woods suspicious. He asked Murray to come in for questioning. In both cases, detectives want to establish if their suspects had anything to do with the murders. But they don't start their interrogations by asking questions about that.
The first phase of a successful interrogation is for the interrogator to establish a constant or baseline for his subject's behavior.
A suspect is asked everyday questions in order to observe their normal speech and body language patterns. Observing suspects when they're not stressed will make it easier to observe the effects of stress on their speech and body language later on. In the Nicole Frederick case, Lieutenant Loria starts the interrogation by sharing a meal with her.
What I'm really trying to gauge is a baseline for her behavior. How nervous is she? Does she appear to be withholding anything, or is she aggressive? Just so I know kind of what range she's going to function in. And that went on for a few minutes, but you can see how she relaxes very early on in the interview because it's non-confrontational.
You guys have plans for today? Pretty much take it easy.
We have a couple of hamburgers and some French fries together, and that is a great way of developing a relationship with somebody because typically we don't eat with total strangers.
In case 2, Detective Woods observes the baseline behavior of his suspect, Thomas Murray.
And I've been in this town this is my 16th year, so I don't know why you have this look of familiarity about you.
It's been on Labor Day weekend out here playing softball.
Initially, we built a little bit of rapport with me. We just got some basic personal information, so there would really be no reason to be dishonest or, tell a lie about your name, your date of birth, where'd you go to college at, those kind of things.
By the time I quit playing baseball, about 18.
Did you play baseball? I played in the semi-pro league when I was 17.
When the detectives feel they have the measure of the suspect's baseline behavior, they begin the next phase of the interrogation. In the narrative phase, the suspects are asked to explain what they did on the day of the murders. In the Nicole Frederick case, Lieutenant Loria begins the narrative phase of the interrogation. He asks Frederick how her stepdaughter, Anne-Marie, got her injuries. But even though he suspects her answers are deceptive, he doesn't challenge her about them. The purpose of the narrative phase is to get as much information as possible.
But it's nothing uncommon for her to look like she was run down,
Little kids get bumps and bruises.
But yeah, but she's way beyond a normal little kid. I mean, she's like real clumsy,
Well, that jumped right out at me when she started talking about Anne-Marie and various bruises and scrapes that she had. She repeatedly said how clumsy the child was and how the child bruised easily.
And she bruises so easily.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
That was kind of a warning sign to me that there might be some deceptive behavior to justify certain injuries that we were able to see on her.
The most serious injury to Anne-Marie is a blunt force trauma to the head, which has left her in a coma.
On her, and she lost her balance and fell back right here on the coffee table, which I'm sure probably eventually came along, but for one right here, I don't know about.
One of the ways an interrogator tests a suspect's emotions is to ask a question that requires an emotional response.
I asked Nicole Frederick the question, what do you think would possess somebody or motivate them to do this to a child?
I don't know. I honestly don't really know.
And initially, she gives me a good response. I don't know. Considering the injuries, the level, very good response.
But like I said, I don't really think that someone did it.
But then after that, she follows it up with, but I don't think somebody did this to her. That all of these injuries, burns, scrapes, bruises, blunt force trauma, that all occurred around the same time, happened by some series of accidents.
Frederick fails to show either outrage at Anne-Marie's injuries or a desire to find out who caused them. It's another example of a suspicious emotional response. The detective investigating the murder of Carmen Ross, Detective Woods, begins the narrative phase of his interrogation of her ex-husband, Thomas Murray. As he asks Murray questions about the murder, he spots an important body language cue concerning his